Okay, here we go. We gotta remember to do that. Now this is the real recording. Okay. Okay. This was invited. I'm looking to see if there's something here paused on. Okay. Okay. There we go. Yes. Obviously, Zoom has made some changes and I'm just discovering them because yeah, this is about it. I usually just do the one Zoom a month. I don't do a lot of other Zoom stuff unless I'm talking to a client or something. Okay. Where were we? Sabine. Okay. Connie,
Okay,
introduce yourself.
yes, my name is Connie. I'm pretty new to the group. This is only my second time around. I've studied astrology as a hobby for probably 20 some odd years. However, I've just decided to go public with it and try to transition this into my second career after I retire from the state. And I joined here to meet other professional astrologers, people who are doing the things that I want to do. And I believe I do have a website. I believe I gave you the wrong URL last time. It's actually mycrystalmaven.com. I'm about to change over, and I think I gave you the changeover address. And I'm on Instagram and YouTube. So I'm out there. I'm just trying to build my practice. And like I
Great,
said,
thank you.
meet like-minded astrologers.
Okay. Audrey.
Great. Oh, hello. Sorry about the. Okay, I didn't change my. Yesterday, I had my 9th birthday of my other group, so I still have that cake behind me. So sorry.
That's okay. Nice to see you have
Yeah,
some cake left over.
okay. So my name is Audrey. I love astrology. I also have this other group of astrological sharing. It's every other Friday. It's called the Metaphysical Haven. So just Google that and you can find me. I'm a Leo Sun, Scorpio rising, and Scorpio moon. Thank you.
Thanks. Mar, how are you doing?
Hi there, I'm Mar. I'm a Libra Sun, Taurus Moon, and Scorpio Rising. And I'm happy to be in this group every month. Thank you.
Yeah, your audio is breaking up.
Yeah, we don't hear your
Audio is
audio.
breaking up,
On,
Mark.
Oh,
I don't know if you have
okay.
a headset or you could change the settings and get close to the mic on your computer.
Okay, can you hear me okay now? Is that better now? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a
Thank
Libra
you.
Sun, Taurus Moon, and Scorpio Rising. And I'm always happy to be in this group every month.
Yeah, she's one of our regulars. We appreciate that, Mar. Thank you.
I
Erica.
appreciate it too.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Erica.
Hi. I've been coming to Symptomatic Astrology for many years. I'm actually now based in Boston. I was in LA, and I'm a Libra ascendant, Aries Sun, Cancer Moon. And I also have been studying a lot of Vedic astrology. So I've been I do both Western and Vedic, and I try to kind of link the two as well. So hello everyone.
Great. Thank you. And Wave. Hi, Wave.
Maybe Wave has stepped out.
Okay, well, let's start talking. Um, So let's see. Well, there's a lot of stuff coming up, astrologically speaking. Um, so let's see. Tomorrow, Mars enters Virgo and Mercury will enter Leo. On the 12th, the mean lunar nodes change to Aries Libra. On the 13th, the moon goes out of bounds north. On the 17th, we have a new moon, 24 Cancer, 56. And the true lunar nodes enter Aries Libra. So they're always a few days off, but they're rarely more than a couple of degrees apart. On the 18th, the moon returns in bounds. July 20th, Mars opposite Saturn, moon opposite Saturn, and then moon conjunct Mars. So that the three aspects could really stir things up. So we have to wait and see. On the 21st, the sun goes void of course. On the 22nd, Venus stations retrograde, the sun enters Leo. Then on the 23rd, Chiron will station retrograde. 19 Aries, 57 minutes, 48 seconds. Let's see, July 27th, we have the Mercury-Venus conjunction, though they're on opposite sides of the sun, so it may play out more like an opposition than a conjunction. And Mercury will go void of course before changing signs. And the moon goes out of bounds south. Then on the 28th, Mercury returns to their Virgo home. August 1st, super full moon at 9 Aquarius 16. This is the first of 2 August full moons. And then the moon will return in bounds. August 3rd, here's a heads up for you. Mercury enters their shadow for their coming retrograde. It'll be at 8 Virgo. August 6th, the sun makes a first quarter crisis of action square to Jupiter. August 9th, retrograde Venus makes the second of 3 first quarter crisis of action squares to Uranus. Having done one during its direct phase, a third one will be when after it stations and goes direct again. And then on August 13th, which is our next meetup, it's the Venus-Sun inferior conjunction. All right, and something that Spencer noticed is that the new moon of on July 17th is going to be making a cardinal square back to the solar eclipse of April 19th. And there's some other things that'll be going on. Spencer, do you have a slideshow handy in front of you there that you can look at? Let's see. Let me do this here. Unmute, Spencer.
All right, that, I have this music thing that won't go away, and then I have to go up in the corner. Anyway, I'm back and I have the wonderful presentation that you prepared for today. What do you want to know?
Okay, hang on. Katerina and Audrey, if I got your emails right, I just sent both of you the PDF of the slideshow. You others, I will send it to
Okay.
you when I have your email addresses. But okay, here we go. Hang on. There's
That's a
Rita.
great idea, Jim. If people could personally message Jim with their email, obviously, and ask for the slideshow, we can look at it on our own computer while he's discussing.
Yeah.
It. Great suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
yeah, so
bye.
what's interesting is how one of the few slides or charts that I included was a tri-wheel showing the USA chart on the center, the eclipse at the second ring, and then the new moon transits on the outer ring. And the thing that's interesting is that this new moon at 24 Cancer on the 17th is going to be conjunct the USA Mercury, which is also 24 Cancer. And at the same time, you get basically kind of a three-way lineup of Pluto. The USA Pluto's at 27 Capricorn, so the new moon is basically opposite the USA Pluto. And we have transiting Pluto now moving retrograde back to a conjunction with the USA natal Pluto. So it's actually going to stop about 20 minutes of arc shy of an actual conjunction. But I think that'll probably be close enough for it to create something. We've already had 3 exact Pluto returns, and this could constitute a 4th. And that's going to be, I think October 10th is when Pluto stations direct. So that, but it's going to be at 27 Capricorn for quite a while. So that would be interesting to watch and see what's happening late September, October, as Pluto retrogrades back to 27 Capricorn. Yeah, Spencer, I know you brought this up and we're talking about some of the things that you noted that were interesting about the new moon and the eclipse chart.
Let me see here. I was the new moon.
Hi, Rita.
The thing I was talking about, the thing that the new moon is which the thing that which one of these is there's the new moon. Yeah, I had a couple of things here to talk about, in that I was very worried about the natural square to Mars, and then in the natal chart is let's look at the new moon. It's a little hard for me to read. All right, the new moon is at 2929, or is that's the cyber? That's the one I'm going to get to the cyber hybrid. I'm very worried about the Mars. Now the Mars. Anyway, I'm very concerned with the degree of 28 Aries, and the reason that I was really interested in it because is that changes the nodal axis from 0 Taurus to 29 degrees of of Aries. Now, when you have a little axis changing, and it's exactly on the point of an eclipse, it came to me that this was a very interesting situation because we have been really in Taurus in the nodes for so long, and now the concept of Taurus, a fixed Earth sign, has been kind of in a way holding many of us back and finally getting something going off of any of the different plans that we've been making during this node in Taurus. Now the node is in Aries, and I think what I'm feeling at least is there's a whole emphasis now on two things pushing this, the point of the eclipse and also the nodes that, to me, I don't know how you've been feeling this, but I've been feeling a lot of energy coming into me, and a lot of projects that I'm starting are now starting to really start, if that makes sense to you. In that I really feel, now, I've always been very interested in people say, oh, that was exactly on the, this aspect and this aspect, you go 8 months back. I am really interested on an eclipse on the same point that now we have the nodal axis. And I think that that's very interesting. I need to get back to my points of the square to Jupiter in the present configuration with the new moon at 24 degrees. And I found that, the Jupiter here is at 23 degrees. So we have an additional square to the Jupiter. Now, Jupiter to me represents a lot of different things because on one hand, it's a great expander. On the other hand, it's very philosophical. On the other hand, it's got a spiritual concept. And so we're having all these things, this new moon making a square to Jupiter, which to me, now we have a whole new expansion that's going on from an aspect of a square from fire to water, okay? Now this, to me, emphasizes another aspect. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but suddenly my family has to Zoom every other week. My sister's demanded, she's a double cancer, so what can you say to her? And I really feel that this is a very extraordinary time that we're involved in here personally. I feel personally because we also have, this whole thing of looking at Venus starting to station and that kind of thing. So what I've been pointing out to Jim and I'm pointing out to you is that this shift from fire to earth in the nodes, this coincidental thing of this shift happening to be on now, I don't know if you remember that last eclipse. That last eclipse was a humdinger to me. I mean, I went, whoa, what is this? And I actually got some kick off of that. And then, of course, everything shifted into Taurus. But I'm wondering, I'd like to ask this group, because I think we have a lot of professional astrologers here who've been following this very intensely. And if they have anything in their experience that is exciting or is moving or is predictive, as what I've been seeing when I brought up what something is, we're not going to see a 29-degree Aries node for years, 18 years. So what does that mean to you? And what does it mean to you if it's involved with the exact point of a very strong eclipse? Plus, we're sitting on the concept here of Cancer squaring Jupiter. And once again, we have this conflict between what we want to emotionally do and what we can do in Earth. That's a real conflict. I mean, there are a lot of things I've really been trying to do that I really can't do because there's just too many, but there are others I can do. So I'd like to know, you people are very smart and I really respect your opinions. And I'd like to kind of throw it open to see what you have felt about what this chart is all about, and of course, we all are looking at the once again, Pluto. And I'm trying to get into the United chart.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it is interesting, Spencer, that when the first thing that the nodes do when they change signs is they activate the eclipse point from April 19th. So, yes, that's an interesting point. I wonder, you say, has anybody thought about that? Okay, you're holding something up, Audrey?
I have just, this is Erica.
Oh, yes, Erica.
So I actually have a planet. I have Mercury on this point as well. And it was funny that April 19th, the eclipse was pretty strong for me. Something at work happened where it was kind of a dramatic point in my work. And now we're coming to the new moon, and now I'm getting a new job basically. And it's very much related to the event that happened on April 19th or led right up to it. And for the last 3 months, it's kind of resolving itself. In the next week, it's already starting. So I felt a very strong connection. And as I mentioned, I also do Vedic astrology. And my planet Mercury is my dasha right now. So, and it's also my rule planet. It's my ascendant ruler. And so it rules kind of my 10th and my first house. And so I'm moving for it. So it was actually quite a big dramatic event for me, both Western and Vedic. And I definitely have that link from the eclipse to the new moon. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the important point to remember here is that, sometimes we tend to forget about things that happen, these astrological events, but realize that they don't go away. I mean, that point is sensitive, and as such, any significant transit or event connected to that point can reactivate or bring those things back up again, as it does in this case, because, yeah, you have the new moon, which is solar eclipse is a new moon, and now we've got another new moon, which is squaring that same point. In between, let's see, last month's new moon would have made probably made a trine, a sextile back to that eclipse point. But it just keeps those events keep that eclipse alive, that sensitive point alive. So,
we were at
yes.
the ESAR convention, and we heard a woman talking about the bending and the idea that a sensitive eclipse point usually has a lot of power till there's another eclipse point. And that was very kind of new to me, because I have been giving eclipse power basically 3 to 4 months, and trying, my clients say, well, they're eclipse, what, they expect on an eclipse that the thunder of Zeus should come out and strike them in some way. And then at ESAR, Jim and I talked to this one from England, and she says, oh, it's the bending. It's going to have, so that's another astrologer who I was very impressed with her ability. She came out of that astrology lodge in England. So when you think then too about what we're having here in terms of a potential very strong situation, when you look at where, I'm trying to get this straight now. I had it clear in my head here for a minute. When you have the Mercury in the Sibley chart, you have that square from Pluto, I mean, of Jupiter at 23 oh God, anyway, where the hell is it? Jupiter. There it is on the second. Anyway, that 23 degrees also taps in to the point in the Sibley chart. So when you have that kind of pressure put on, it seems to me that that's an energy that a lot of people feel who are not normally sensitive to a lot of astrology aspects. And I wonder if astrologers and people who are very into some of the other aspects of the occult are more sensitive to this. And I'm trying to pull out of this group what kind of energy do they feel starting. I'm really interested in that. And anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm rattling here, and I don't want to just talk about all my ideas here. What
Okay,
do
Sabina.
other people see?
Okay, Sabina.
Hi. Well, I was trying to think back to that April date. I feel like just with, coming out of pandemic, just with the spring, everything felt fast forward. I started my Instagram astrology site last like November. But anyway, I feel like in the spring I was trying to post a lot, and I just saw that, okay, April 20th, I posted about Mercury on the verge of going retrograde. And my title was like, please do not panic, and just try to explain more of how I view Mercury, especially in retrograde. Anyway, but I feel like since that time, like life has taken over outside, like other things I've put my attention to. And I hadn't been doing quite as many readings, but now I'm arranging a group reading and an individual reading for that week of July 17th. So I don't know, maybe I'm pulling, maybe it's pulling too far. I don't know, but I'm like, okay, I do have that coming up. So I feel like, okay, maybe I'm getting back, doing more of the
Yeah.
astrology. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And actually, I recently, my little brother, he just got married, and I actually did, they asked for a reading during their ceremony, an astrology reading. So I did a tri-wheel, the bride on the inside, my brother's on the bi-wheel second, and then third is their wedding date, the day of their wedding. And so I feel like almost like I found my calling or something. I just enjoyed that so much. But I haven't been able to post about it. But I'm wondering if around this July 17th week, they'll get their photos back. They said, everybody put away their phones. So I have no physical record of me doing that. But once they get their pictures, I feel like it's been a long time coming already. So I feel like maybe that'll come up and I'll be able to share more about that and expand more on that area. Oh, okay. I'll write you back.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect
Thank
sense
you.
to me. Yeah. See here. I want to go into the nodal shift that's coming up. And because there's a couple of things that I think are really significant about this, that if we just think in terms of, well, it's going from Taurus Scorpio to Aries Libra. Okay. It's going from a fixed sign to a cardinal sign. But think about which planets rule those signs. Mars rules Scorpio, Venus rules Taurus, correct? Mars rules Aries, Venus rules Libra. So right now we have Venus ruling the north node, Mars full ruler of the south node. When that switch happens, they change places. Mars becomes ruler of the north node, and Venus becomes ruler of the south node. So both of the, yeah, so we still have Mars Venus rulerships on the nodes, but they're changing nodes. It's the only time this happens. So not only are we going from fixed to cardinal, so that we're getting away from this fixed, stubborn, plodging energy into the cardinal, let's get stuff going and do stuff energy. But Venus and Mars are switching places. So where Mars has been involved with the past, the dragon's tail, our skills, knowledge, what we bring with us, our karma, where we want to get rid of stuff. And Mars is fine getting rid of stuff. He doesn't care what we get rid of. Unfortunately, he may get rid of some stuff that we shouldn't have. And Venus is the dragon's head. This is where we're going. Venus is desire, attraction. It draws us towards that. But now they're going to switch roles. And perhaps, with Venus now in Libra, ruling the dragon's tail, maybe we will discover there were some things that we let go of that we shouldn't have in the last 18 months. There's something from the past that we need to go back and get again. Mars, of course, doesn't care about the past in Aries at all. So have you thought at all about the fact that we have this, not just the transition from fixed to cardinal, but the fact that Mars and Venus are the two ruling planets and they're switching roles? Surprise, surprise. I hadn't thought about it either until I realized what was happening.
Can I bring back one thing I said I forgot? That
Yes.
the new moon at 24 Cancer is conjunct the Sibley Mercury at 24 Cancer. So I don't expect to go back to Sibley and all that stuff, but I just want to kind of put that in your back of your mind to think about that the new moon that we just had actually conjuncted the Mercury of the Sibley chart. And that, if I'm right, that Sibley chart puts that Mercury in the 8th house. So I think whatever's going on publicly is certainly a dark thing that's been stressed and another energy that we have to deal with. Okay, that's the end of my commercial. So let's go back to Venus, unless someone else wants to comment on that, because I had to get all that out. Oops, lost my
Yeah,
pen.
so to answer James is start to unravel, with this change in nodes with the planetary rulerships. So we would look at the condition of Mars and we would look at the condition of Venus as nodes are changing signs. And we would know that Venus is in traditional astrology, we could look at, are they, and their domicile, are they exalted? Are they in their fall? We know that Venus in Leo is going to be moving retrograde or appearing to move retrograde. And Mars is going to be moving from Leo into Virgo. And that's not a sign so we have the feminine, money, love, relationship moving retrograde, reviewing, rewinding, reconsidering how we do finance, love, etc. And Mars in Virgo is considering consolidating. Virgo is a sign of the harvester, the harvest maiden that kind of cuts the wheat from the chaff. I have to look to see how long. I'm going to grab my ephemeris. How long that's going to dictate some of the feeling or condition I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're dealing in part with eighth and second house USA chart, because yeah, those even in the US, yeah, it's still the money houses. Pluto retrograde in the second, the new moon in the eighth, uh, and I think aren't we. I know that Congress did do an extension for the budget, so we didn't go bankrupt right away. But then a lot of the hardline Republicans, took offense to the deal that was made, even though they initially, some of them at least initially agreed upon it. And they seem to have it in their head that, so what if we default on our loans? That ain't going to happen. I would say they're like the ostriches with their heads in the sand, but I think it's worse than that. If something hasn't happened, it won't happen, I guess. I'm not sure where their thinking is at. But most the people in Congress, if there's a common background to them, they're lawyers, they're not economists, they're not for the most part successful business people. They're not, they're people who have, I don't want to say failed at everything else, but have never really done much of anything else in many cases. It's kind of like, and I know it used to be more, you don't have to see it so much anymore, but it used to be, well, my daddy was the congressman, so now I'm the congressman. And my son will be the congressman. It's almost like a family business. But I'm wondering, we're still confronted with some kind of a timeline on that budget extension, but I'm not sure what it is. Excuse me. Is there anybody that's been following the financials that has an idea how long this extension is going to run, and at what point we're going to be confronted with potential default again? No. Okay.
Well, I would like to say something about that, is that there's I don't know if you have any inventions, but I was talked into buying some treasury notes, which are non-taxable and theoretically is as good as the government. And I'm worried, probably not necessarily so, that if they screwed up the government, how good would that treasury note be if suddenly the United States becomes a Class B economic entity? So I've been watching it quite a bit, and I'd like to add one thing that a lot of these congressmen and senators, they get to choose whenever they want to invest, okay? And they pass legislation, right? And they know that when legislation that this is going to drop or increase, they can invest in that without the concept of using their knowledge of the stock market. Normally that if you would bet on something on knowledge that you acquired, you would have to deal with the law. And they don't have to deal with the law. They make the law and they play the law. And I don't know. I'm assured by people that I'm over worrying about, treasury notes because I bought some. But I would like to add that is a concern for me about the economy. And some of the other parts of the economy also worry me, in that we haven't really got some of the money that's supposed to be used for the infrastructure has not progressed as quickly as it should. So anyway, that's enough of me, another sermon, but I do have some worry about what Jim is talking about. If they don't raise the debt ceiling, then the government will not be able to pay on those notes and things that other countries have invested in the United States. That would be a very sad economic day. That's another sermon. I'm giving sermons today. I can't help it. But so yeah, when they stop that, most of those people are already millionaires, these congressmen and senators, especially the senators.
Okay.
And they work on a inside information basis on the stock market and other things. That worries me.
Yeah, where am I? Okay. Yeah, I was just doing some searching, and it looks like what Congress agreed to is going to carry us through into 25. So
Yay.
yeah, so we're not faced with any
Yeah.
immediate danger.
Yeah. My 1 year CD.
And you know, I think it's safe to say that if the Republicans win the presidential election in 24, that they're not going to be a problem raising the debt ceiling in 25 because they'll be in control. They have no problem doing that as long as they're in full control. When the parties in whatever party's in full control doesn't have a problem with raising the debt ceiling some more. So I think we're probably good, for a couple of years anyway, or probably a year and a half. Oh, that's when the nodes will be changing from Aries Libra to Pisces Virgo. Interesting. Okay.
Have we talked about the trine in Leo between that eclipse point and also the nodal point? Have we talked about that at all? I think that Venus, in some way, I think is we think about it as a love sign, but it's also the negotiating sign, the understanding society, understand people, how people interact, and how these things work. And I'm hoping that Venus, when it stations, will have a good effect on the rest of us, because I think it'll make a very strong energy that will mix in, especially with the fact that trines that eclipse point and the nodal point. Just another.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, Spencer, that the Venus stations at 28 Leo, which trines the April 19th solar eclipse point. And Venus rules money.
That's true. Taurus.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's see what it is at 10, 17. Yeah. Next, not this coming week. This coming week, we may start to see some things building up, but it's the following week, the week of July 17th, which is next. No, what is it? Today's the 9th. Okay. Let me get my calendar straight in my head. Okay, so the week of July 16th, with the nodes, true node switching, the other stuff that's happening, that's going to be a busy week with a lot of energetic changes. The nodes, when they shift, they change modes and they change elements, and they typically change rulerships. So this time the rulers are just going to swap places. So it's going to be quite interesting. Now, I don't know if you use the mean nodes, the nodal shift is on the 12th. If you use true nodes, the nodal shift will be on the 17th. So that nodal shift may start to be felt this week, but by the following week, it should be pretty well in place. And the nodes will be conjuncting the solar eclipse point, squaring, transiting retrograde Pluto, and moving back towards making a more exact square. And then you also have the potential for the fourth and final Pluto return to the US natal chart. So it'll be interesting to watch. And you might want to keep an eye on this. Even if you don't normally watch the financial market, you might want to keep an eye on the main things: price of gold, price of silver, the Dow, and the 500, NASDAQ, the main indicators, just to see how they're doing. And something else I read recently from a financial standpoint, we're now into an inversion mode. Normally, long-term treasury bills have a higher interest rate than short-term bills. But because interest rates have been so low for so long, and now with a bit of inflation, they've switched. So now the short-term are paying higher interest rates than the longer term. And this is called an inversion, and is sometimes an indicator of a significant financial shift, typically, like a recession, something of that nature. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Though I have for a while not really thought that the market was tied into any reality anymore. So who knows? Okay, let's kind of move along here. Where are we? Yeah, keep in mind, the last thing I want to make about the nodal shift is we're going from fire and air. No, we're going from earth, water to fire, air. Okay, so we know there's 4 elements. And the thing to keep in mind is that earth and water are complementary, and they will always oppose each other. Those 2 signs always oppose each other. Fire and air are the same way. They're complementary, and they will always oppose each other. So if you're in a fire sign, the opposite sign will always be air, and vice versa. And so, with this nodal shift, we change modes and we change elements. Okay, so the next slide would be one about the history of the North Node and Aries, South Node, Libra. But okay, so the last time we had this was December 26th of 2004 to June 22nd of 2006. Now, we were all around at that time. Some of you may actually remember, what you were doing or what was going on. I have a vague memory of it. And the time before that was April 21st of 1986 to December 2nd of 1987. Now, the nodal shift, okay, so those periods, whatever aspects the transiting nodes make to your natal chart will repeat. So whatever aspects were made in 87 will repeat, and this time around as well as they did in 2004, 2006. Doesn't mean you should expect the same things to happen. Expect that, if you started something, that there's going to be some kind of a connection, perhaps a common theme or thread that will connect these different periods of time. But you can also then take a look at what was going on with your progressed planets or your solar arc planets, because they have been moving all this time. And so that's where the subtleties of change can occur, can be shown up. But the slide I have shows Aries Libra transits for 1930, 31, 49, 50, 67 to 69, 86, 87, 2004, 2006, and then the current one, which goes until January 11th of 2025. So those are some things to think about. What houses are these nodes going to be moving through in your chart? Which planets are they going to be conjuncting, opposing, squaring? Those are the main aspects that are going to be event oriented.
But Jim, we're never, what is it? We're never walking in the same river twice. Whatever
Yes.
happened, yeah, so what is it, 19 years ago, roughly 2004 to 2006,
Mhm.
You may have had events happen, but it may not be related to the nodes. You could have any other aspect or transit happening that's really significant that could have been more reflective, or, there's a question, the deity asks, is astrology causative? And it's more synchronous and reflective. And so you could have had a Pluto conjunction somewhere in your chart that really was more significant maybe than, and concurrent with the nodal,
Yeah.
nodal cycle. But, there's always something, and what's happening now could not be that same Pluto conjunction. It could be something.
Yeah.
Something else.
Yeah. What's
entirely
happening? Things happen in your life. So yeah.
totality.
Hmm.
Or,
And the shape of your natal chart has a lot, I think, a lot to do with what the impact of the transiting nodes. Okay, so if you have a normal chart where you've got stuff kind of scattered around, you're going to find that maybe first the north node, then the south node will be making, if you just look at conjunctions, um, you know, you may have the north node conjunct something, and then the south node, then the north, and then the south for a couple of things. And as it goes around, the energy is moving back and forth, emphasizing first the north node, then the south node. For those of you who've seen my chart, I'm not one of them. If you've not seen it, I'm a South Pole. I have everything contained in houses 7 through 12, which means that as the nodes move, just looking at conjunctions, first, the one node will conjunct all the planets, and then the other node will conjunct all the planets. So it's very much a north node, south node. It goes back and forth in terms of emphasis on my natal chart. So if you happen to have a chart that's either a bowl or concentrated in some way, where you don't have the planets scattered about, you know that, as they move, one node is going to go along and basically be conjuncting everything over a period of a few years, and then you may get a break, and then the other node comes along, and then it conjuncts everything, and it keeps going around that way. And you can start to get a sense of this if you just go back and start looking at the transiting nodes themselves going over your chart without moving anything else. Just move the nodes and see how that, if you just look at your chart, you can kind of visualize that just from where the nodes are. Okay. Moving backwards, which node's going to hit a planet first? Which one makes a conjunction first? Maybe you've already, maybe you have a natal planet that is conjunct the nodes to start with. So that's always going to, be a very sensitive point, particularly when you have a nodal return or a nodal opposition. So those are the kind of things to keep in mind and look at. Okay, we're not doing too bad for time. Anybody got thoughts here? Your ideas? If you looked at your transiting nodes to see if Rahu and Ketu are doing, what they're doing to you?
So I have a cardinal cross, and I have the nodes going on my. So I have my nodes going in my first and seventh house, and I have Sun and Uranus opposing them in the first and second. When Uranus is in my first house and Sun is in my second. So usually, I think with the cardinal cross, when something's triggered, it like triggers the whole thing. So
Yes.
like everything just gets zapped.
So yeah, you've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
But if you go back and you look at when this happened before, then that'll give you a sense of what sort of things might be coming up, what to expect. And I think that's one of the beauties to me of learning astrology, is that you realize that everything happens in cycles, that there's the short cycle of the day, there's the long cycle of the Pluto transit, And in between, you've got all these other little various cycles of various lengths that are constantly going on. And when cycles coincide, big things happen. Could be good, could be bad, but big things are going to happen when they coincide. Yeah, your second Saturn return coincides with your fifth Jupiter return. Those are the kind of thing, the midlife crisis in the late 30s, early 40s. You've got several things going on at that time. You've got you got the third Jupiter return at 36. You've got Saturn opposition at 43. You've got a Uranus opposition around 42. You've got a Neptune first quarter square at about 41. So there's a whole plethora of things, particularly when you get the outer planets involved, that can be happening around the same time period that can help to explain why it can be such an intense time. And understanding that and understanding the nature of the archetypes we're dealing with can help you to better deal with those things, but it can also help you as an astrologer, help your clients to understand and deal with those things. So yeah, it's a cycle. We all look at it. It happens, shit happens and then it moves on, you flush in it the way it goes. But yeah. Okay. Feel free to interject anything along the way and disagree with me if you like. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I won't kick you out. All right, let's get into Venus. Okay. All right. I think we want to have a good understand. Understand Venus. We need to go back, I think, and understand some of her mythology. And Mr. Grendel, you're ready for Inanna?
Oh, yeah. Let me just get out of this nodal thing.
Yeah. Venus is known by many different names. Inanna, Venus, Aphrodite. The Mayans had different names for her. And quite often, Venus is sometimes the evening star and sometimes the morning star. And most ancient cultures would have different names for her, depending upon whether she was in the morning or in the evening. They knew it was the same body. Go for it.
All right. Now we're going to talk about what's called Etana's eclipse, which means that she's going to go from the evening Venus, then through a time of not seeing Venus, to seeing Venus now rising in the east. Now, the idea here is that if you take the myth of Inanna and follow it, you get this pattern of Venus is going into the underground and coming up on the other side. So here's the story. Inanna is a very high goddess and one of fertility and other wonderful things. But she decides she wants to go down and visit her sister. The universe has been kind of divided up, and she got she got to be above the ground, and her sister Ereskkigal got to be the ruler of the underwood. And at this particular time, Ereskkigal was married to, quote, the bull of heaven, who he had died, and she was grieving. So Inanna says, I'm going to go down and see my sister and prick her up. But by the way, handmaiden here, if I don't come back in 3 days, you sound the alarm, because I don't know what's going to happen here. So she goes down, and the way to going down in the underworld is that you come to this place where you are stopped. That's it. You don't get any farther. You got to take off your clothes. So she says, well, they do it very simply. They talk about, take off your jewelry, take off this. And then finally they say, take off your inner garments. There she stands, nude. And so now they take her down, and she sees her sister lying on the side, moaning and groaning because she's in such pain over the death of the bull of heaven, and her own position of being now stuck in the underground. And when she sees her sister, this bitch who got to be above the ground and rule the sky, for God's sake, she was not ready to be helped. She is ready to be pissed off. So Ereskkigal is a little complicated, but she makes her into a side of beef. Now you have to stretch your imagination. And then they put her on a meat hook, and there Ereskkigal sits there and is very happy that she put her spoiled brat sister on the meat hook. Well, now after 3 days, Inanna's handmaiden goes, "Whoa, I got to talk to people because Inanna hasn't come back up. What's going on down there?" So she goes around to all the gods, including her own father. She goes to the moon god, she goes to Anu and on. And these people are kind of related to her. Then Al said she brought it on herself. She went down there. Who ever a nut would have to go down there and try to deal with Ereskkigal? We kind of all know what Ereskkigal is up to. So everybody refuses, but finally, the last person the handmaiden finds is Enkidu. Now, Enki is really a hot shot because he's the god of a lot of things, but one of them is irrigation, and they're right by a river. So they say, "Oh my God, Inanna hasn't come back. We're worried sick about it. No one will help me. You're my last person. Please, please help." So he says, "I'll help you." So he takes his hand, okay? He takes his hand and takes out a little knife and he peels off the dirt under his fingernails, and here they disappear and they become two little itty bitty people, okay? And now he says, when their little itty bitty people are, he says, "Here's how we're gonna play this. You go down there, because they're not going to see you. You're going to get down there and you're going to pass everybody. And you go over by her, and every time she moans, you moan with her. Every time she says something, oh, I miss, my husband, you go on and repeat that." So they sneak down into the underworld, and there is Ereskkigal still moaning, and there is Inanna, now a piece of meat hanging on a hook. So this is a situation. So the two little people, the fingernail people, they go over and they are beside Ereskkigal. And so every time Ereskkigal moans, they moan with her. They go, and every time she goes, "Oh, I can't take it," they go, "Oh, I can't take it." So interestingly enough, this is a technique that modern astrologer has, a modern psychologist has kind of adapted this technique in dealing with clients, is that you kind of empathize with them and showing your empathy, and then they get closer so they can have a better experience with the psychiatrist. So interestingly enough, this psychology works. And Ereskkigal said, "Man, I'm feeling better. I can't believe it. I'm feeling really good. You guys are saints. What can I possibly do to pay you back for this wonderful thing that you've done?" And he says, "I'd like that piece of meat that's Inanna, and I'd like to take her back up to the world. And well, there's a rule. The rule is that you can't leave the underworld unless someone has to go back and be in the underworld." Okay, we'll make a deal. I'm going to go up and try and find somebody who will do this. So Inanna goes back up, and now there she is with her handmaiden, and she's very comforted by her handmaiden. And she says, "Now, where's my husband, fiance, boyfriend? Where is he?" "Well, he's off chasing women. He's off having a good time." And then he hears that Inanna has come up, So he starts hiding. And she chases him around. And behind Inanna is this whole group of demons that are coming with her, so that whoever she chooses to go back to the underworld will be easily seized by these demons. So she's looking around and she hears this about the Muncie. She says, well, I can't find him. And someone says, you ought to try his sister. So she races over to his sister's house, and there he is hiding. And she says, okay, you son of a bitch. See those demons? They're going to take you back to the underworld because you are really a cheater and a no good guy. And I'm fed up with you not being able to be loyal to me when I was down there suffering. This, the Monte doesn't take this very well, as you might imagine. But there's no denying that Inanna is going to do this, even though she's now thinking, gee, this is really rough on him, but he's got to take my place because that's what I want to do. So just then, the sister comes up and says, oh, Inanna, I'll take his place. I'll go to the underworld and he can stay here. She says, no, I'm not off that easy. What we'll do is that we'll give each of you 6 months on surface and 6 months down in hell. This happens, and boink. And so the way that the visitation for the 6 months that the Muncie is able to come up with Inanna is the equinox. He comes up right at spring. And he's got the joyous job now of going out in the fields and making love to Inanna, so the field and the whole kingdom will be fertile. And then when you read it, then there are a whole bunch of hymns and stuff. And of course, I'm giving you a wrap kind of conclusion to this. But the interesting thing is many countries like Persia and like Arabia, let's say, and they start their spring with Inanna spreading out fertilizer because she and her old buddy, now back in being a husband, have gone out. And now here's the really funny thing about this. Everybody in the whole who goes off to watch him. We're not going to just let him do this and think about it. So we're going to make sure that he makes it with Inanna, so we'll have a good spring and a good seed planting. Inanna is giving the seed to him, and he's a shepherd god and also involved with the earth. And then in the other equinox, that's when the Muti has to go back down and pay his 6 months of payment for what he did. Now, the interesting thing is that when Inanna comes up, she is very angry. And mythology about when she came up is that, as we are going to learn when Jim continues this, is that she now is going to have to rise. And so her rising to chase the Muncie becomes the Eastern Star, because the star goes under, it comes up, and there she's visible again. And that's why the idea is Inanna goes down kind of diplomatically, and she has a terrible experience, comes back up, her lover's missed her, she's pissed off. And so that's why the rising is Inanna coming up angry. And that's how the myth of Inanna does with what I think are the equinox shifts. Because obviously, the moon's sister is faithful but weak. So she has to rule the fall and the winter, which is not a great position. So that's the thing about Inanna, and the reason that a lot of astrologers have used this myth as to explain why Venus, when she comes back up, there's all this mythology. And when you go into Aztec mythology, for example, and the Mayans, they start wars. That's why I couldn't. Jim introduced me. He said, "Hey, you know that there's a war when she arrives with the Mayans." I thought, so the Mayans also have this myth, and I'm going to give it to Jim now. But now you know, in a very colloquial presentation of Inanna's journey into the underworld and coming back up angry. So Jim, you can take it away from there because you can
Okay.
talk about the Mayans if you want.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. Like one of the things I think that I find fascinating when we start looking at the mythology behind the planets is how all the ancient cultures have similar myths, even though they may not have had a lot of interchange of of ideas and such. And the Greek, with Inanna, part of Inanna is about why we have 4 seasons, why we have the split between, why there are there's the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And in the Greek version, it's Demeter and Persephone and Pluto who abducts Persephone. So they all have those, and typically what happens too is that they realize that Venus spends some time as an evening star and sometime as a morning star, and so they will assign different names and different attributes to her in those appearances. The Romans, for example, called Venus morning star Lucifer.
Now that was before Lucifer was the devil. Don't forget that. That was
Lucifer's never the devil. Lucifer means light bringer or light bearer. So you never had, and unfortunately, somewhere along the line, the Christians got a hold of it and they decided to make him a bad guy. The evening star Venus is known as Hesperus, which stands for Western. And so there's a difference in how the two function. And like Spencer was talking about, in the morning star, it's almost like she's angry or angrier than she is as an evening star. And so my question to you is, do you know which you are? Are you a Venus morning star or a Venus evening star? Now, here's how you can tell. You look at the position of your sun and what sign your sun is in, and then you look to see where Venus is. Is Venus in a sign that precedes the sun, or is Venus in a sign that comes after your sun sign? If Venus is in a sign that comes before your sun sign, for example, Spencer is a Libra sun, Venus in Virgo. Virgo comes before Libra. So Venus will rise before the sun, which makes him a Venus Lucifer. I, on the other hand, am just the opposite. I have Sun in Virgo and Venus in Libra. So Venus follows the sun. Libra follows Virgo. So the sun will rise first and then Venus will rise. And so the sun sets first and then Venus will set. So I'm an evening star Venus.
Let's see if people can everybody tell us whether they have a morning Venus or a?
So, okay, so let's just kind of go around here. So Connie, your sun is in. Unmute.
Okay, my sun is in Aquarius and my Venus is in Pisces. So I guess
So
I'm an evening star.
you're an evening star.
Cool.
Kat, do you know what you are?
Um,
Davina.
Hang on one second, Jim. Yeah, go, next person, pass.
Okay. Sabina.
So Sun in Libra, Scorpio, Venus. So evening.
Evening star. Yes. Erica.
Sun in Aries, Venus and Pisces, so morning,
Evening star.
evening.
Yeah, morning star. No, wait, that's gonna be an evening star because that's what we're on, yes, because Venus, Pisces comes up and then Aries follows. So yes. So you're a morning star. Rita, Rita, you're gonna be the same thing I am, which is an evening star Venus. She's born a day after I was, so
Because our sun's in Virgo and our Venus is in Libra, right?
yep. So you're evening star.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Audrey.
Evening star.
Okay.
7 Leo Sun and the 18 Leo Venus. So
Okay, yeah. So you're just, yeah.
evening.
So you're at that point where this Venus was just coming back with the right conditions. You might see Venus just before she sets. So you're an early evening star Venus. Yes, Connie.
Does it matter if your sun is like about to change signs?
No,
Okay,
no, it's all about where Venus is.
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, since the chart turns clockwise, if you just keep turning it, you'll see it's a matter of which one crosses the ascendant first.
Okay. I was just wondering because even though my sun and Venus are in different signs, they're still conjunct. So I just wondered
Yeah.
if that made a difference.
Well, how conjunct are they?
Let's see. I think sun is at 28 degrees Aquarius, and I think Venus is at 3 degrees Pisces.
Okay. So your Venus is actually combust, meaning
Yeah.
it would not be seen.
Okay.
Is your Venus direct or retrograde?
Direct.
Okay. That won't change it, but it does create a sense of where it's at. Okay. Let's see, where were we?
Just to recap, you're saying that if it's a morning star, it's Venus is a morning star. It is with the sun or near the sun, and if it's opposite or on the other side of the sun of your chart, it's an evening star, so it's visible at night.
Yeah. Yes. Basically, if sun rises first, then Venus is morning star. And if Venus rises first, now Venus rises first, it's a morning star. And if the sun rises first, then Venus is an evening star. I confuse myself sometimes.
Hey, I just wanted to chime in with some resources regarding some of that mythology.
Mhm.
I have the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by, I guess you're seeing the opposite, I'm not sure, by Barbara Walker. And Inanna is listed as a Sumerian name of the goddess given of the queen of the land who made every king her bridegroom wedding hymns were written for her. She's an ancient queen of the overworld, but Eresh Kagal is her sister, and she's the queen of the dead. She's like Hades, the queen of the underworld. In order to get some research about Inanna, the book Inanna, Queen of Heaven and Earth, Her Stories and Hymns from Sumer, they're written by Diane Wolkstein and Noel Kramer, who are two authors that translated 6,000-year-old cuneiform from Sumeria. And in the telling, Inanna willingly goes into the underworld to have a kind of cathartic cleansing, and she doesn't get rid of her clothing or the 7 veils. She's required to surrender 7 objects which relate to her ego, her identity, and her power and authority. So one are her crown, so her symbol of royalty. Another is her lapis beads from her neck, which symbolize lapis is the third eye, inner insight. Double strands of beads, which were often used as currency or money in the ancient world. Fourth gate is the breastplate, so her armor that protected her body, because Inanna and Venus were also a warrior goddess, especially when she becomes the morning star. And let's see, the 5th gate was her gold ring, her power, her wealth. The measuring rod and line. A rod and line is used to measure property, to be a property owner. So there's really significant things. And the last is her royal robe. It's not her clothing, but her symbol of royal wealth and power. And she willingly goes into the underworld, relinquishes this. Her sister casts the evil eye, and she is turned into a corpse. So for 3 days and 3 nights, she spends in the underworld, which is where we get our Jesus mythology. And then she rises with the help of other powers from the overworld, and she has to choose who takes her place, and it's Dumuzi, the husband. So there's this balance of the years. But I just wanted to include some of the research so you understand what it's about. Also, the planet Venus, we'll see conjunct the sun. It will go into the underworld, yes, and spend 40 days and 40 nights before the planet is visible on the horizon at dawn and becomes a morning star or a morning visible planet before the sun rises. So I just wanted to add some of those pieces to the puzzle.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Basically, when Venus is retrograde, her retrograde phase lasts, she's retrograde for about 6 weeks, give or take a day or two, depending upon alignments. And let's see, I've got, it's a nice little diagram I found that's in the slideshow. Let me see if I can hold this up, and if you can, I don't know if I can put this where you can actually, I guess, I don't know, you can't really make it out, can you?
But if you put the link in the chat, we can look at it online.
Okay, let me
Try to
attach
show
it in.
the 40 days
Yeah.
is 6 weeks. So the 40 is significant in a lot of cultures.
Let's see.
Oh, and also I was looking under the Inanna in our Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. And, you know, they are shared and goddess deities and, you know, signifying power. And the Hittites called her Inaris in the land of the Haiti. The Jews celebrated her, many cultures. You know, she may have changed names, but something similar is happening. This regenerative power of the feminine in Earth.
Let's see. Yeah, one of the things that's interesting is that during the Venus retrograde phase, she's going to be stronger because she's closer to the Earth. That's when she passes between the Earth and the Sun. creating her inferior conjunction. And that phase in the underground is actually shorter typically than when she is direct and on the far side of the sun, creating the superior conjunction. And right now I'm trying to find what I'm looking for here. So what'll happen, Venus is never, basically her limit is about 47.5 to 48 degrees from the sun. So she makes three if you count basically she can make three aspects: a conjunction, a semi-sextile, or a semi-square to the sun. So you have to really look at your minor aspects when you're considering Venus and for that matter, Mercury. Mercury can only get to about 28 degrees from the sun. So she's never, so she's either conjunct or semi-sextile. Let's see here. I've almost found what I'm looking for. Wasn't that nice? There you go.
What are you trying to look for to find it and post it in the chat?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the picture I'm looking for. Oh, for out loud, it doesn't call out.
While you're doing that, I'll read a cool paragraph about Inanna, if you don't mind.
Venus cycle.
Inanna was
Yes.
the source of the earth's lifeblood. She filled the wells and rivers and springs with her blood, her power. As a fertility deity, like her Babylonian counterpart Ishtar. So again, all these connections with Babylonian, Sumerian, Greek, Judean, Egyptian. Like her Babylonian counterpart Ishtar, she annually descended into the underworld to rescue her consort Dumuzi or Tammuz. And she is known as Nana or Anna, and she became the Holy Virgin Mother of Atlas. Where do we have a Holy Virgin Mother, Holy Mary, Mother of God story? So you can see where these narratives are coming from. The Bride of Balder and the Elder Virgin Mother, whom Christians call God's grandmother. Hittites called her Inaris. In the land of Hatti, she renewed her virginity each year to become the bride of the sacred king at Peruli festival, later passing to Jewish Purim. So ancient, amazing stories. Know that they're all metaphorical. They're, how were the seasons? And a lot of Europe and what we call the Middle East are really divided into two seasons, summer and winter. And that's why Nowruz, or the Persian New Year, begins at summer or spring equinox.
Yeah, I was trying to share a link to the picture, but unfortunately it's not letting me.
Okay.
I'm getting some kind of an error message, so.
We could post it in the Meetup group or the Facebook page as well.
Yeah, I'll post it to Facebook. I'll upload the whole slideshow to Facebook, so if you're members of our Facebook group, then you'll be able to get it from there as well.
Tim, this is Rita.
Yeah.
You just went through everybody to find out if we were an evening star Venus or a morning star Venus, right?
Correct. Well, we didn't get through
what's
everybody.
the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference? Why is it good to know that?
Well, there you go. That's where we're going next.
Oh, okay, great. Answer my question.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Let me ask Katrina,
I was going to give you some.
what do you think of,
hang
the way that Ashtar is delivered in this myth? Because definitely Ashtar has the power, but she also comes with a lot of other personality types. One of them being the seductress, and in the Gilgamesh, she's so mad that she can't seduce him that she kills his best.
I'll be right back. Pardon me.
So that's one of the problems that I've really had. I agree with Katrina's great presentation. She's obviously very scholarly about this, and I really appreciate that. You guys should realize that when I was saying she had to take off her clothes, she went through the whole ritual of taking off all her power and finally the purple road. But I was just like, Katrina, what do you think of Ashtar?
Well, I was going to say, like contemporary and Victorian Greco-Roman mythology is very much coming from a patriarchal, mindset. And it's becoming colloquial to thought of, minimize her, oftentimes minimize the feminine. So that's why I really wanted to say these are all 7 symbols. 7 is a significant number. 7 chakras, planets, days of the week, relinquishing all of the power. And I want to not get sidetracked or into the weeds with a discussion of another mythology, but hand it back to Jim, I want to graciously hand it back to Jim's topic.
Hang on. Yeah, I was going to try something else to see if that would work.
Oh,
Uh,
figuring out Babylonian star, again, Babylonian Ishtar, the great goddess, star goddess, who appears in the Bible as Ashtoreth, Anis, Asherah, Queen of Heaven in Jeremiah, chapter 44. She was the great mother. Babylonian scriptures called Ishtar the light of the world. Notice this was not a male light of the world. The leader of hosts, the opener of the womb, the righteous judge, the lawgiver, the goddess of goddesses, the bestower of strength. I love that. The framer of all decrees. She's an author. And the lady of victory. The word Venus also has venison, it's meat, it's abundance and food. There's so many things that we can, when we interpret Venus, that's why I go back to these ancient stories. All right, Jim, let's do some filler, educational filler.
yeah, I'm sitting here trying to figure out something, and it's like the wrong time to try to be figuring things out. Okay, let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so here's the key dates for Venus, just for point of reference. All right. On June 5th, Venus entered Leo. On June 19th, Venus entered her shadow. On July 22nd, Venus will station retrograde. And then on September 3rd, she will station direct. October 7th, she will finally leave her shadow. All right, so here is what I could find in terms of a definition of some possible or probable differences, it seems, between people who are morning star Venus and people who are evening star Venus. Morning stars Venus tend to feel and things first and then think about it later. They let their feelings, they're more apt to let their feelings lead the way and then think about it later. But they're also they are emotionally resilient, tending to recover fairly quickly from, or more quickly from, emotional wounds, a breakup, for example. The evening star, on the other hand, they seem to generally internalize their emotions more and think about it. And they tend to feel after the fact or express their feelings after the fact. They find themselves, they find themselves ruminating in their mind a lot about what, do I love them? Do I care? Those kind of things before they actually express themselves. Now, considering whether you're an evening star or morning star Venus, then you start to think about this. Are you more apt to express what you're feeling rather than taking time to think about it before expressing it? Um,
Can you guys hear me?
yeah.
I've had trouble with my computer, and someone very knowledgeable just beat on my door. So I'm gonna rush at this because he has only so much time. So I really, Karina, I'm very impressed with what you know. It's really great, and all of you, I really want to say thank you for being here, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks, Spencer.
Thanks,
Take care.
Spencer.
Bye bye.
Okay, before just to tell you what else is in the slideshow. Okay, so there's a nice diagram that shows the Venus cycle with the Earth and the Sun. I've included current dates for when the things happen and how they, and you'll see that when Venus is retrograde and goes to the underworld, it's a shorter period of time, because what's happening is Venus is moving in one direction and the Sun is moving in the opposite direction. From our perspective, it's what I call a double applying, double separating, because as Venus approaches the Sun, they're both moving to that point of inferior conjunction. Once they're at that point, then they're both moving away from it. Where with the superior conjunction, when Venus is on the far side of the Sun, they're both moving in the same direction. And Venus is traveling only slightly faster than the Sun. And so it takes longer for Venus to catch up to the Sun, and longer for her to move from that point of disappearing and to reappearing, disappearing as a morning star, reappearing as an evening star. So the morning star always follows the Venus retrograde, inferior conjunction. The evening star phase will always follow the superior conjunction, Venus direct phase. I've included a couple of charts, one for Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and one for her son, John Kennedy Jr., because they represent the two types of Venus. John Jr. was an evening star Venus. Jackie's a morning star Venus. I've also provided a list of some celebrities that are either morning stars or evening stars, so you can get a sense of who they are, and to try to get a sense, or help you get a sense then of how or not, whether or not this concept of what a morning star is and an evening star might actually apply. And there's a slide with a bit of a summary, a list of some books and some websites that you can check out. Here's our tentative upcoming schedule. August 13th, Basics of Medical Astrology. We're going to be talking about body parts, some of the basics of medical astrology in terms of who rules what. That's what we're planning. September 10th is the next meeting after that. We're going to be talking about solar returns and half returns. November 12th, we're thinking open mic astrology. So basically, we won't have a planned program. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to do a little presentation on something, if you've got an idea about something and you want some feedback on it, that's going to be the time for it. December.
Tim, did you skip October?
No, October. Oh, I'm sorry, I did, didn't I? October is solar arc directed arcs, sometimes called shadow transits. And we usually talk about progressions more. We talk about progressions more than we do solar or directed arc. And the main difference is that a progression moves, a secondary progression is a day for a day for a year. And everything moves at its normal rate. And so you can have planets station and go retrograde, or station go direct on you. They change, the whole shape and configuration of your chart can change over the course. With solar arcs, that doesn't happen. With solar arcs, everything is moving at the same rate as the sun, and so your basic chart shape never changes. Planets won't change direction. You know, if you're a new moon type where the moon is 2 degrees from your sun, it'll always be 2 degrees from your sun in a solar arc. In a secondary progression, it won't be. It will move and transit the chart over a period of 29 years. Just like a normal Saturn transit. And December, of course, is our annual look ahead. Okay, so now back over here. Where is everybody? There you are, all you lovely people. Thank you for still being here. Okay. So thrown out we've talked about a number of things and thrown out some stuff. So questions, thoughts, any other ideas for perhaps future meetups that we could talk about? Something that puzzles you, that you don't understand, that you'd like us to go into in greater detail sometime? Yes, Connie.
Okay, so we talked about the difference between a morning and an evening star, but you mentioned earlier that if your Venus has combust, that means it wasn't visible at all during the time you were born. So I'm just wondering now, I did get married later than most people, even though I always wanted to be married. I had trouble finding somebody I wanted to marry, let's put it that way. And as I look at my chart and I notice both my Venus and my Jupiter are combust. So I'm just wondering if that probably had any bearing on that.
Probably. Could quite possibly have a bearing on it. Yeah. They're Aquarius, Pisces.
Yeah, so my sun is 28 degrees Aquarius. My Venus is 3 degrees Pisces, and my Jupiter is 21 degrees Aquarius.
Okay, well, yeah, Aquarius is that fixed air sign. So yeah, they're not going to rush into things typically. So my father was an Aquarius, and he was 39, 40 when he married my mother. So he married late.
Were any of his were either his Jupiter or his Venus combust? Because I know in some, depending on who you ask, the Venus represents the wife and the Jupiter represents the husband. So I'm just
Well, golly gosh, I don't know. I'd have to look him up. Let's see here.
I think it's a good question, Connie, because what do you do if your Venus is combust? Even if you don't see it as a morning or evening star, you don't see it at all. And then also the question of cazimi, well, you're neither a morning or an evening star if you're in exactitude. And I know off the top of my head, Oprah Winfrey is one that has that cazimi. She's an ultra Venusian super goddess.
Mm-hmm. And she's an Aquarius. Isn't she an Aquarius too?
I don't know. I just know that she's
Oprah, no, I don't think so.
got to be right there in the heart of the sun.
But no, so my father had Aquarius Sun, Capricorn Venus, so it's a morning star Venus, but a Pisces Jupiter, so it's an evening star Jupiter.
Okay. Well, in my instance, it looks like neither one of them were shining down when I was born. I was born in the daytime, so they wouldn't have been shining anyway, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, my father does have Saturn 2 degrees from his sun, so he has a Saturn combust.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Commitment shy.
Uh, so yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, of course, is that, um, yeah, typically talk about individual planets and what they're doing, but they're all part of the whole picture. And ultimately, how they play out is going to depend on the whole picture, not just, what they're doing it's not like they're not acting alone. Okay. All of them are on the stage at the same time. And it's a question of who's front and center, perhaps. But what's everybody else, what are everybody else doing? So yeah, so you have to
I'd
keep
like
those
to
things in
add
mind.
something.
Well, at least my seventh house is in Scorpio, so that's a fixed sign, so that's pretty stable. So even though I got married late, it's likely to last forever.
And yeah, yes, wait.
When the Venus is not seen or is in the underworld or is in retrograde, it takes on a plutonic quality of being in the underworld. And one of the qualities there would be someone becomes like a shadow magnet, which means that other people will bring their problems or project their problems onto the person.
Mm.
Now, is that when
So-
Venus is, which Venus underworld phase are we talking about?
The interior.
The interior, okay.
Yeah, but it can also be the exterior. There's there's a different nature to the exterior than to the interior.
Yeah,
So
okay.
when you become like a shadow magnet, and I have Venus retrograde 5 days before she turns direct in Aquarius. But when she is like that shadow magnet, it's like people come anywhere, from it, like out of nowhere, and will just start telling you their problems without even knowing you, and cry even, and just want you to help them, because there's a I guess a sense of if you're in the underground, the underworld, you become an underworld navigator. You understand the problems that go on when things go into chaos, and like the rug is slipped out from under your feet. And so you become a guide for others to go into the underworld. Would that be true for, I forgot her name because I can't see it. Sorry. The other woman with Aquarius.
Connie,
Come by.
Me?
Was it you,
Yeah, Connie,
Connie?
do you feel like you're attracting the people who come to you with their problems? Are people more open with you about their problems than, say, they might be with other people, about them?
Despite the fact that Aquarius is supposed to be seen as standoffish, I do seem to attract people who want to vent. So, and I don't
There you
mind,
go.
I'm good at listening to people.
Yeah, that's an Aquarian quality,
Mm.
a
Yeah.
good listener. And sometimes that's all we really need. We just want somebody who'll listen. And hopefully at the end not tell us we're crazy.
Well, I get that too.
well,
Yeah.
that's a great point, Wave. The idea that someone with that has this combustion is an emissary or a navigator of the underworld. And also they're invisible, not visible, like because of the rays of the sun.
Mhm.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible that that recognition is not given for the work that the person is doing, or there's a
Yeah.
lot of work done freely without recognition because you're being asked all the time to navigate for people. Or you can go into therapy and be a real navigator, or become a shaman and be a real navigator of the underworld.
Yeah. And for some people that is reward enough.
Yes.
I think that,
Yes.
it's when you're in that position and where people will come to you and talk to you, and if they leave feeling better and you haven't really said anything, hey, that's fine. That's like, that's like a therapy session. You know,
That sounds
sometimes
like
we just need to, we just want to vent.
that sounds like a good characteristic for an astrologer.
Yeah. For an
That's right.
astrologer, yeah,
Or an astrologer.
you have to, yeah, you have to be a good listener to know what's
Yeah,
going on in the world.
yeah. And you have to help people through chaos and changes and difficult periods of time, you know? So
Yeah.
yes, that applies.
Yeah.
Now, was it Wave? I think you were the one that was just talking.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. Can you explain what you meant by interior and exterior? I
When
haven't
Venus,
heard those.
well, I think James was talking about when Venus goes around her cycle around the sun.
Mhm.
Okay. So it goes like for the inferior conjunction, when Venus is closest to the Earth, it goes like this. Oh, you could draw a circle on a piece of paper. It goes Earth, Venus, Sun, Sun, Venus, Earth. If you're looking from the Earth to the Sun, it's Earth, Venus, Sun. If you're looking from the Sun to the Earth, it's Sun, Venus, Earth. So Venus is lined up so that she cannot be seen because the beams are blocking her from seeing her when she's closest to the Earth. That's the inferior conjunction. And the opposite happens when it goes Earth, Sun, Venus, Venus, Sun, Earth. So from the Earth's perspective, Venus is on the other side as she travels around. What is it, 180 days later from the inferior conjunction? So she goes all the way around to the other side of the sun. And seeing this is really critical, I think, to being a good astrologer, is to understand the actual placements of where is the planet when it goes around the sun. So these two things are critical, the inferior conjunction and the exterior conjunction.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a unique characteristic for Venus and Mercury because they both orbit between the Earth and the Sun.
Yes.
So when they're retrograde is when they'll have, and we see them conjunct the Sun. That's the inferior conjunction. And you can think of it like a new moon. It's like a new beginning of their cycle. And then after they go around and now they're on the far side of the Sun and direct, and from our perspective, they appear to be conjunct. That's called the superior conjunction, and that's more like a full moon within the lunar cycle of 8 phases. And that's why I pointed out, go back to my slideshow. So right now, so Venus is going to be going retrograde. Mercury is direct, and come July 27th, from our perspective, it will appear as though Mercury and Venus are conjunct because they're in our direct line of sight. They're both there. However, Venus will be retrograde and is coming between the Earth and the Sun, and Mercury is direct, so it's on the far side of the Sun. So I maintain that that conjunction is really has more characteristics of an opposition than a conjunction because they are on opposite sides of the Sun.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about the Mercury Venus cycles, there's they're basically, they can make a conjunction or they can make a sextile within the major aspects or a quintile if they're both at extreme side or what degrees from the Sun. But the reality is that there's a lot more to it because when you're looking at a conjunction, are they both retrograde? Are they both direct? Is one retrograde and one direct? And then which tells you where they are relative to everything else. And I think changes the color or flavor of the aspect. Obviously, if they're both retrograde and they're conjunct, that's one thing. If they're both direct, and then they're on the near side of the sun. They're moving between the Earth and the sun. If they're both direct and conjunct, then they're going to be on the far side of the sun, which
Right.
puts them later in the cycle. But when one is retrograde and one is direct, now you're looking at something that's really more like an opposition than a conjunction. The outer planets are really nice. Okay. When they're conjunct the sun, they're on the far side of the sun. When they're retrograde and oppose the sun, then they're on the same side that we're on and they're closer to us.
Yes.
Really nice and simple, sort of.
Yeah, because if I could say something super dark, sorry, super shadowy and super dark, when Venus goes retrograde and then spends that time, you know, in that conjunction area, it casts a shadow on the Earth. Venus is really important to be seen. It's better when she's seen because that shadow aspect coincides with a lot of, well, it has been a lot of mass murderers go nuts during Venus retrograde, but because that's been my observation over the past 15 years or more, but the really sick part now is that there's a mass murder almost every day, sometimes more than once. So it will be, I usually get a little nervous when Venus goes retrograde, even if I have one, because of the effects it has on the mentally unstable on the planet.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's
and
kind of,
it's
yeah,
funny
now
you
it's
keep-
almost like Venus is permanently retrograde because I mean,
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
crazies are out there. So it's like,
That's
yeah,
right.
there's something else playing into this chaos.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Something else that's
Yeah.
who knows what. Yeah, the deterioration of humanity.
Well, I mean, in the US, it's certainly this Pluto, Pluto cycle that we're in. But I would say
That's a good point.
I mean, you would keep revisiting, and it's squaring the nodes, and it's going to be a grand square for the new node. But I love this idea, Wave, of the Venus casting a shadow, but that she's going into the underworld. The underworld is where we face death. It's where the dead go. It's the emissary between the living. She's the emissary between the living and the. And it's in the sign this time. The sign of Leo rules authority, higher, power, kings, queens. You have to assume a kind of kingly, dictatorial role, personally, politically. Whether it's there's killings of family members, communities, schools, churches, whatever, or governments, and there's certainly a lot of, whether it's the mass migration of asylum seekers from the Mediterranean, or in Ukraine and Russia, there's a lot of these simultaneous things happening.
Yep. Yep. It never looks pretty, that's for sure.
And then, but it's an inherent cycle that we have to go through
Mhm.
to all the
It's
consciousness up. And I'm thinking about thinking of it as a Plutonian cycle, or like a visitation of the underworld, a 40-day cycle, a 6-week cycle, give or take, roundabout, that we have an opportunity to really, this retrograde reflect. And also that these might be the places where we have this in our, or that of a city or a country, where we might have superpowers around this, what she returns with powers of authority because of that venture into the underworld.
You know what else too, to add to that is because I get a little, as I've been watching this for all these years and freaked out a bit, a lot actually at times, but one of the things that I felt was self-protective during this time is to actually go outside and look at her and like pay homage to her, almost as if we were primitive, in the primitive way, go out, spend time, talk to her, try to get insights into your own Venus and what she represents, and just honor her as if she was really important in the life rather than a distant planet that, we just intellectually talk about, you know, like do something ritualistic, ceremonial, be with her when she goes through her cycle.
That's great, because we often think of her as the evening star, starlight, star bright, and I think ritual is an inherent part of our own transformation. But where, and I mean, have you gone and gotten up before dawn to see her as a morning star and pay homage and give offering? And I think it's a great approach to the whole practice of it.
And it's also unbelievably magical to watch her go one night. At one night she's in the evening, and then the next day gone, and then she appears a few days later, 5 days later. It's a very magical process to be involved with.
Mhm.
I was sort of mostly paying attention, but all of a sudden I heard as Venus goes through her cycle, and all I kept thinking about, they're always telling us women we're in our cycles, you know, our own cycles of the 28 days. So I don't know what Venus cycle is, how many days but it's like this feminine cycle that's going around.
Speaking of Venus.
584.
Yeah. Now here's a couple of interesting astronomical facts about Venus. Her day is longer than her year. In fact, her rotation is about 584 days. So her day is about 584 days long, which is how long her cycle is. Her year is like 227 days or something like that. That's how long it takes her to actually orbit the sun. And she appears to be rotating backwards. If she were rotating like the Earth, the sun would be rising in the west and setting in the east, but her day is so long, it's probably not really perceptible. All right, question. What chart do you consider to be the most difficult to read?
What are our options?
Any.
Oh,
Is there a chart that you find the most difficult or challenging to read?
Vedic square charts.
Yeah, I'm not talking about an aspect. I'm talking about a chart in general.
Oh yeah, it says Vedic, like Jyotish, Indian.
Just a chart.
Square chart.
I can teach you Vedic. Vedic is quite easy once you learn how to use it.
Okay.
What part?
I'm thinking I'm thinking our own charts are the hardest to read.
Oh.
At least for me it is. You know, it's kind of like doing a tarot spread for yourself. It's like, okay, I know what they mean, but what does it mean? Yeah. I find my own chart the hardest to read. Okay. That said, playing in with the Venus retrograde, and this is for Rita's benefit as well, because like I said, she was born a day after I was, so our charts are pretty much identical. Okay, so Venus is going to station retrograde on July 22nd at 28 Leo and change. She's going to station direct on September 3rd at 12 Leo 12. What does that mean? Well, September 3rd happens to be my birthday, and 12 Leo happens to be where our natal Pluto is. So Rita and I will both have Venus stationing direct on our natal Plutos within minutes of arc.
Ooh.
And for me, it's a birthday present. For her, it's it's the day before. Thoughts?
What does that mean, direct natal on Pluto?
And for me, it'll be in my 8th house. For Rita, I think it's just going to be her 8th, but let me make sure.
So say again, it's a Venus conjunction, Venus conjunct Sun in. Oh.
Okay, so for Rita, it'll be in Rita's 7th house. It's in my 8th house when it stations direct on September 3rd on our natal Plutos.
Oh, September 3rd. Oh, stations direct.
On our natal Plutos?
Yes.
Hmm.
Who gets to die? Well, that's in my case. It's 8th house. Rita's case, it's the seventh house. New relationship for Rita, maybe.
Um,
Pluto tends to be very transformative. It wants us to be who we really are, to be, acknowledge our our true selves. And if we don't, then it pretty much dumps on us.
Yeah. Trying to get us to be our true selves.
Yeah.
So we should look forward to our birthdays, huh?
Yep.
Here for the next 45 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
We always look forward to your birthday.
Well, yes and no.
We should.
No, I should.
Now,
But
let's
it
see.
was the day I got COVID, but other than that.
In Rita's case, it will be making a trine to her south node, sextile to the north node. In my case, it's also trining my natal moon. Oh, one other note I was going to mention, I forgot, was when talking about Inanna, mental jump back there. Okay. Lilith was one of her handmaidens. Her most famous handmaiden was Lilith. Just as an aside, as a Lilith aficionado myself, embracing her in all forms. Everybody's thinking here. I can see them.
Did you say Lilith was a handmaiden to Venus?
Lilith was a handmaiden to Inanna.
Oh, Inanna, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
news. That's big
yes.
news.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I find interesting is that, yeah, when you start studying mythology and ancient history, and even with astrology, and if you get into a discussion with some Christians, and I'm thinking more of those leaning towards the right-hand side of things, you realize that all these stories in the Bible, they're not unique and they're not original. Mary wasn't the first virgin to have give birth. Animals do it, but even within the human realm, she wasn't. Jesus wasn't the first one to die and be resurrected. Inanna did it. There's
That's
numerous
right.
other cases of stories of those who did this same thing. The flood predates the Bible. Everything the Bible is just, somebody writing,
Who's the
compiling
god?
stories from before.
Who's the god of wine that's supposed to predate Jesus?
Oh, Bacchus? You
I
thinking
think
Bacchus
there's another one. I think
or
there's
somebody
another
else?
one. I know that I was doing the sand tray. I was
Mm.
doing the
Nice.
sand tray, and my therapist said to go into the Jung bookstore and ask for the Mystery of Inanna. And I went in there, and it's wonderful. She's the wife of the founder of the Jung Institute in Los Angeles, and she said, "The goddess has called you." So it was what
Yeah.
I started my trip on the goddesses.
Oh, Horus, Bacchus, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that when you start to think about it, how, I'm not discounting the Bible or Christianity in any way. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
it's not original. It wasn't even the
Yep.
first monotheistic religion.
It wasn't?
No.
What was before that was mono?
Before, well, let's see, I think Zoroastrian came before that. And before that, oh God, what was the Egyptian pharaoh's name? Oofly.
Oh,
Um,
Judaism only has one God, Yahweh.
Yeah, but they weren't the first.
No.
They weren't the first with be monotheistic.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember the name. There was an Egyptian pharaoh who tried to do away with all the other gods and have just one. That was the sun god Ra, if I remember right. And everybody went along with him while he was pharaoh, but once he died, it's like, let's go back to the old ways. And that was about time frame when the Hebrew slaves supposedly were ready to leave, fled Egypt. As around that same time frame. So personally, I'm wondering if maybe they weren't the followers of that ancient pharaoh and the one god Ra.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up and see what his name was.
So his name
So
is
yeah, it's
Ikhnaton. Decided that sole supreme deity was Aton, symbolized by the sun. Akhenaten. I'll put it in the chat.
oh yes, Akhenaten. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So okay, folks. Well, it's 2:35. You've been lovely. Thank you all for showing up and sticking with us. Whatever is going on with Zoom, I will have it figured out and we will be able to share next time. If you would send me be sure to send me your email, or if you're, like I say, if you're part of the Facebook group, I will post the slideshow in a PDF format to the Facebook group and you can see it all from there and you can read through it. And it's one of my shorter ones. It's only 20 slides. I was trying so hard to be, concise and simple here and not drag things out ad infinitum like I sometimes do. So we did talk about a lot of things today. So
You always do great, Jim. You dedicate
thank you.
a lot of time.
Yeah. So remember eclipses. They don't, they last minimally until the next eclipse, but they create a sensitive point that can last a long time, particularly if it falls somewhere in a sensitive place in your chart. So any eclipse that makes a aspect to a natal point, or is part of your prenatal eclipse family, those sensitive points are going to be there for a long time. And other events transits, regressions and such can trigger those and reactivate them. Yes, Connie. It's so polite. Thank you.
About prenatal eclipses, I don't know much about them. I've been trying to learn about them. So what I'm thinking, okay, the prenatal eclipse is the last eclipse before you were born, no matter how long ago it was, or is there a time frame or?
Yes and yes. So yes, for most astrologers who do acknowledge or talk about prenatal eclipses, it's the one that was closest to but prior to your birth.
So it
And it would
doesn't matter if it was a year ago or 5 months or
it
3 months
it won't
ago?
be that far ago. It won't be that long ago. It can't be. It
Oh.
can't be more than probably about 5 or 6 months before your birth.
Okay.
I mean, if you're born right before a solar eclipse, then the previous solar eclipse was probably about 5.5 months earlier.
Okay.
Okay.
And so wherever
However,
that,
yeah, so that creates a sensitive point for you,
okay.
that eclipse point.
And when
Now,
you say sensitive point,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, okay, sensitive points are the natal position of all your planets, your
Mhm.
natal angles, natal, the natal points of your nodes and any other, like Chiron or any other asteroid or anything that you might use. Whatever their natal position is, that's a sensitive point.
Mhm.
Okay, but to that you can add the points of the prenatal solar eclipse and the prenatal lunar eclipse.
Okay.
Now, depending upon when you're born, you could have more than one prenatal eclipse. Here's where I differ from the mainstream. And let's see, was it Bernadette Brady? And I think her theory is that if it only counts if it was the prenatal lunation, either new or full moon prior to birth. So if it wasn't the new moon right before you're born, or the full moon right before you're born, it doesn't count. But most say it's simply the one prior to birth.
Okay.
And I think the solar eclipse is the lesson we're here to teach, and the lunar is what we're here to learn, something like that. But Now, my way of thinking, having
So
done some study,
I just looked it up there. I was born February 17th, and there was a total lunar eclipse on February 5th. I mean, total solar eclipse on February 5th, 1962. So about 12 days before I was born. So wherever
Yep.
that one occurred, that's like a sensitive, that's so,
yep,
okay.
yes. And see, mine was at 6 Cancer. Now, I don't have anything in Cancer or any water signs, but that is a sensitive point for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So it's
tend to react to people.
kind of like a lunar node, kind of.
Yeah, only, yeah, because I tend to react or attract people that were born late June,
Okay.
which would make their sun conjunct my um, prenatal solar eclipse. However, I believe that any eclipse occurring between conception and birth counts, and each one creates a sensitive point.
Okay. What if the sensitive point was, okay. I'm sorry, no, it's not conjunct. It's just but my sensitive point is in my sun sign, so that just adds another. I was telling you earlier, I have so much in Aquarius, and now I find out I got this other sensitive point in Aquarius, which is
Yep.
that solar
Mhm.
eclipse.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
No wonder I
Yep.
feel scattered all the time. Too much going on in my 10th house.
Yeah. So, um, how much do you know about your mother's pregnancy with you, Connie?
Not a lot. Well, what do you mean in particular? Anything in
Do you
particular?
know, was it a difficult pregnancy? Was it a fairly normal conception, 9 months or thereabouts, and you're born? Were you premature or were you late? Any complications with the birth?
No, I was born when she was pretty young, so she was, healthy. So she didn't, well, she did say she was depressed a lot when she was pregnant with me, because I guess she got married young and realized she didn't really want to be married, but it was kind of too late.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's about the only, as far as physically, it was fine, but she did say she cried a lot. She said that's probably why, because she told me one time
Insignificant.
that's probably why you cry so much, because I cried a lot when I was pregnant.
Hmm. Yeah. So my next question is she still alive?
No, she passed
Okay.
away last Labor Day. No,
No.
well, yeah, September 5th of last year.
Okay. Sorry to hear that. Um, uh, any aunts or uncles that might know any other details of the pregnancy? Here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm coming from. Okay. So I've done a lot of work with prenatal astrology. I've been really reading and studying and going bazonkers on it. During that period, starting with the circumstances of the conception itself, everything that happens that the mother experiences, you're experiencing as well.
Hmm.
And so if she's going through traumas and difficulties, that's going to be imprinting into those cells as they form you. Um, if she's, if it's everything is good, it was, she's in a great marriage and they wanted to have a baby and they were happy that she got pregnant and the pregnancy went great and it was an easy birth, then chances are that's going to play out. All that is going to be reflected in that child as well.
Hmm.
But things that the mother experiences, any significant transits, aspects that the mother had going on during that pregnancy to her chart are also going to affect you as that growing fetus inside.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look up her chart for that period of time.
Yeah. Now, do you know anything about her mother, your maternal
Um,
grandmother?
Only that her mother and father were both killed when she was young, when she was like 4 years old. So that's
Hmm.
about all I know of them.
Okay. you see, physically within you ladies are so unique. It's incredible. Okay. The female fetus will develop her sex organs and all of her eggs by the end of the first trimester. Okay. So
Mm.
whatever your grandmother was experiencing in that first trimester, by the end of that first trimester, not only affected your mother, but from that point forward, it's going to affect you as well. Because the
Wow.
egg that became you was already implanted. It's already there in your mother.
Which while she was still in my grandmother.
You got it.
I've heard that
Yeah.
before. That's kind of creepy, but
It is, but at the same
Really
time,
is.
it's interesting. Yeah, lately there's been a lot written and studies done about the fetal onset, they call it typically, of disabilities and conditions.
Mm.
So,
Well, I
okay.
think it's interesting is that, you know, you and I, Jim, are, you know, we were the, uh, you know, what is it? The fathers came home from World War II and we were like right there, the post-war babies. And there seems to be a lot in common with those children of 1946. You know,
Yeah, yes.
I
but
just say my father was saving up sperm for 4 years. And so, you know, came home and 9 months later, you know, but there's
See,
a
my
lot
dad-
when
my-
you start thinking about all the people that were born in 46. I mean,
Mhm.
good and bad, Trump,
Mhm.
not Hillary, but the husband there, you and I, there's just a
Oh,
number
Bill,
of
yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, my
Yeah,
mother was
except
born in 44, so she was close right in there with you guys.
yeah, see, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, my father did not go to war. He was a farmer, so he stayed home and
Ah.
they made, so they had fun all along. So they were trying for, I will say this, they were trying for a girl, but they ended up with me. So that much I know.
That's always interesting too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because it's
So,
unconscious how it affects
yeah,
us.
figure that, and so I'm born with no planets in water signs. So,
Mm.
yep. And evening star Venus, yeah. I ruminate a lot on emotions and feelings long before I'll say anything about them. Okay,
Well,
ladies,
okay, thank you
thank
so
you all
much.
so
All
much.
right.
I am going to stop the recording now.
Okay.
Okay.